Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
With a very special episode with none other than Phil Haack talking about that whole GitHub thing. But
GitHub thing? What GitHub thing?
You know what GitHub thing. Everybody's talking about it. We'll get to that
$1 billion
in a
here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money.
It didn't take that much to hire him back. Come on.
It's a little bit.
Right?
A little bit.
All right. Well, anyway, we have this thing called Better Know a Framework that we do first. So go ahead and roll the funky music.
Awesome. All right, buddy, what do you got?
So this is the Visual Studio IntelliCode package that you can download for Visual Studio from Microsoft Dev Labs. And it's a tool that enhances IntelliSense. And one of the things that it does is it has insights based on understanding your code combined with machine learning. So think about this. When you go to for statement completion in IntelliSense, like you have a string in string dot, wouldn't it be cool if at the top of the list before aggregate or all or any, that list starts...
The alphabetical list.
Yeah, the alphabetical. Wouldn't it be cool if you get the list of methods that you call most frequently?
Oh, right. Or even contextually, like what would be the likely method you're calling here?
Exactly. So it's got a little bit of contextual recommendation happening here. And that's the main feature right now, but of course it's just getting going. It works with Visual Studio 2017 version 15.7 and above. As of this recording, it was last updated on June 7th, so it's pretty recent.
Pretty current, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was very cool. I haven't put it in, but I will make an observation. Mm-hmm. So how many times you call a particular number, is that machine learning? I mean, a particular method?
Yeah, I think that's a stretch for
it is. Well, I don't know.
It's a little simple.
I'm sure they use machine learning, but it just speaks to this tendency in popular code and tools and things to make anything that has any kind of smart code machine learning.
All right, or artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence, yeah.
But I do appreciate the sentiment that, Microsoft has done a good job of spreading IntelliSense around, right? Like Visual Studio Code and so forth. So to come back into Visual Studio and say, let's go to the next level with this.
Yep.
Can we get to the point, how far away are we from this just saying, how about I write that code for you?
Yeah.
Like, I'll just finish that method for you. You know how a surgeon, gets the assistant to, stitch it up?
Yeah.
Right? You can finish off my delegates here.
Or just something pop up. I know what you're thinking.
I know where you're going with
Let me do that for you.
Yeah. You look like you're screwing up a calling tree again. Can I fix that for you?
Clippy for Visual Studio.
That's it. That's what it is. Oh no, we've gone to a dark place with this. It seemed like such a good idea, and then it became Clippy.
Especially it would be annoying if Clippy was right. Hey, you should really use generics for that.
Let me rewrite that for you with generics.
This would be so much easier if you did it my way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway.
Let me show you a link expression that will save you 15 lines.
All right. That's what I got. Who's talking to us, Richard?
Something a little different for our comment today. I'm not going to grab this from a show per se. This is actually a blog post from Jiri Sintira, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly. His blog name is Tabs Over Spaces.
Nice.
So love it. And this is what he said in his blog post. I was listening to the .NET Rocks podcast yesterday, and the talk went a little bit off topic. No.
That's what I want to do.
Although he does say parenthetically, which is fine for me. One interesting question popped up: how many curved monitors you'd need to make a full circle? And I immediately thought, that should be easy to calculate.
Oh.
Sadly, I forgot which monitor exactly the guys were talking about, and I got too bored to try and listen again. So I took the number one curved monitor, bigger than 30 inches. So clearly a man after my own heart that immediately goes to the largest possible monitor you can find.
Right.
Which was the Samsung C47 HG90, which, by the way, is a 49-inch curved monitor. That's a beast.
Do they pay you to mention this thing in every show? Because
it's a different monitor. This is a different one.
Oh, this is a different one.
Yeah, no, I've got the Dell 43. This is the 49-inch curved.
Cha-ching.
Ting, 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 ting. He goes on to do the math around the circumference for the. Actually, does two different monitors. One is a 49. The other one is a much more normal 34. Okay. And checks their radius, figures it out, and it turns out if you use the 49, you'll need 10 of them to go all the way around you, and if you use the 34, you'll need 15.
It doesn't seem like a lot, does it?
It doesn't seem like, suddenly I'm looking around my room thinking, I could probably fit that in here.
Huh.
Now, you know,
what could you drive them with, though? You'd
he
have to
does
have...
quite reasonably says, if you're going to do this, don't forget to order a, quote, few graphics cards.
Nice.
I'm also wondering about the radiation effects of literally being surrounded by monitors all aimed at you.
Yeah.
But, it's so tempting.
Well, you know, what would be really cool, you combine this with some cameras or Kinect or something, and they only turn on as you swivel around, right? So they sort of...
I love it. The monitors follow your eyes.
That's right. Yeah. Fun.
So, Jiri, thank you so much for your comment. I'd love to send you a copy of Music to Code By. So I'm writing a comment on your blog post that we read this on the show. And if you get in touch with me, I'll hook you up with a copy of Music to Code By. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code By.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. He's at Rich Campbell. I'm at Carl Franklin. Send us a tweet. We promise not to hack them. Hack them.
Nice.
Hack them. Speaking of hack, it's time to bring Phil back. That's Phil Haack back onto .NET Rocks. Phil still works at GitHub as the director of client apps, a group that consists of the desktop, Atom, Electron, and editor tools teams. Prior to that, he was a senior program manager at Microsoft, responsible for shipping ASP.NET MVC and NuGet. And these projects were released under open source licenses and helped serve as examples to other teams for how to ship open source software. I blame you for all of this, Phil.
I readily accept all of your blame.
Good.
Nice.
So, yeah, what is this news that we've been hearing on the Twitters and in social media? What happened?
Oh, I don't know. What are you talking about?
You know,
everything's the same.
No comment.
No.
Nice. A friend of mine pinged me the other day and he goes, is it just me or has Phil Haack been really hilarious on Twitter the past day or so? And I'm like, yeah, it kind of has.
Well, you know, I've had a lot of jokes penned up.
Suddenly in a situation where you're funnier than you realized.
Yeah, so it turns out that Microsoft has signed an agreement to purchase GitHub for $7.5 billion of Microsoft stock. And, you know, as such, that's good news, I think, for us. I could go into that later. But, you know, one thing to be clear is, like, it's the intent to acquire at this point. So we still have, like, the regulatory period, you know, got to get the EU and SEC and everybody to be like, yeah, that's fine. And then it will happen. So I am still a GitHub employee. We're still, you know, completely independent.
Well, as of Friday, anyway, last Friday, this is Tuesday, it comes out on the 12th. We're recording this on the 8th. So what happened Monday and Tuesday? We don't really know.
So, I mean, for the next 6 months, while with the regulatory period, we're completely independent. And then in 6 months, we become a wholly owned subsidiary. Very, very flashy word there. Wholly owned subsidiary of Microsoft. The cool thing about that is that we will remain independent. We're still going to be GitHub. The model that I tell people to look at is like a lot like how LinkedIn is, you know, people don't think of it as Microsoft LinkedIn, it's LinkedIn. And so, you know, I won't actually, it's not yet clear exactly what that means for us as individuals. As I understand it, I will be a GitHub employee. I won't be a Microsoft employee per se, although I hope I will have access to all the amazing resources that Microsoft can come to bear on a problem or opportunity, you know, should we need that.
So what we can look forward to is the GitHub client for Windows working as good as Skype?
No!
It's a little cynical.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't help myself. We love Skype.
man.
We're using it right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we're using Skype right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the new Skype is built on Electron, and yeah, there's a lot of interesting Microsoft apps built on Electron right now, like VS Code, obviously, but Skype Teams is built on it. So I've heard the Skype client is, or the new Skype client. But I digress.
Yeah.
I think Desktop's a great product. If you haven't tried it recently, like it's fast, it's fluid, it's I think my favorite thing about it right now is that we're getting a ton of open source contributions, people outside of GitHub contributing to make it better and kind of make it theirs, so to speak. And yeah, we'll continue that work.
Okay. And so what has been the general response from the GitHub user population?
Oh, GitHub users?
Yeah.
I think it's been mixed. I think, judging by my feed, mostly positive. The Linux Foundation wrote a really great post just yesterday, I think, talking about how they see this as a good thing. I think there's a lot of sense of, GitHub will not go, this is assurance that GitHub will not go away, right? That Microsoft is a good steward. Now, you have a lot of folks, of course, who are, I would like in some respects the old guard who've like seen what Microsoft has done in the past and are maybe a little wary or mistrustful.
Yeah.
But I really like what Nat said about it. So Nat Friedman, our future new CEO, currently at Microsoft, acquired from Xamarin, who has a long track record in the open source community. He had a really good phrase where he said, look, I'm not asking for your trust. I expect to earn it. And I think that's a great attitude to take. I've really been impressed with Microsoft in the last year. I've really been impressed with Satya, with Scott Guthrie. I think they're all, like they are now in charge and they are of the guard that really embraced and understood open source. Even during the Ballmer era, Guthrie was leading that charge, right? He was.
You worked for him, right? Back in the day.
Yeah, that's who. Yeah, he was the one who recruited me to Microsoft, and way back when, back in the old days. And I remember, I think I've told this story before, but Miguel de Casa, who has been a longtime business partner of Nat and also well known in the open source community.
Yep.
He and I, have a history of plotting behind the scenes, and I was asking him all these questions, like, okay, how do I build a case to go open source ASP.MVC and accept contribution? Or first, I think I was working on the case to open source it under a permissive license, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, giving me all this, all this input into like how to make a strong case for that. And I came in fired up into Guthrie's office and I was like, I want to make ASP.NET MVC open source and here's why. And before I could really enumerate the reasons, he's like, yeah, okay, I'm already talking to Brian Goldfarb about this. And I was like, what?
Dude, wow. I didn't hire you by accident.
Yeah.
He had a plan. And I was really excited about that. Like, a lot of people have said, was the embracing of open source by Microsoft like something that was top down or bottom up? And I really think it was a mixture of both, right? It came from people like me, Rob Connery, Scott Hanselman, Glenn Block. Yeah. Too many to name. It's funny, I'm blanking on the
Jim Huguenin.
John Lamb, Wix.
Yeah.
Rob Benching. Yeah. So it came from, I think, that the groundswell of those groups, as well as Guthrie seeing that as being the future at a very early time, and in a way, like he was pushing for it all along. In some ways, some of the things had to bide his time, right? Like it takes time for you'd be surprised, but it takes time for an entrenched 100,000 person organization to change overnight.
Whoa!
No,
really?
Wow.
Yeah. But now we're seeing the fruits of that. And I, when I think about sometimes, it may feel like a company, a group, a corporation, a whatever can't change. You look at the wide change of Microsoft and you realize you need to be patient, you need to be persistent, but organizations, groups, teams, countries, hopefully, they can all change.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it does happen. And I've been working on the book for a while now, and it is very interesting to see that energy sort of arrive in 2007 MVC to me seems like it was always destined to try and do something open sourcey. That's also when Codeplex comes along. And then just this piling on, including yourself, of these open source people. But it took 10 years. Like, it's taken a long time.
Yeah.
Phil, let's talk about Atom.
Okay.
Yeah. What's going to happen there?
I think the good news is that we're going to continue to invest in Atom. Nat Friedman had a really great Reddit AMA yesterday, and that question came up, right? What's going to happen with Atom? And he had a really great analogy. He said that developers, now this may also surprise you, but developers are really particular about their setup.
No.
Yeah, I know. I'm just dropping the truth bombs, the shockers.
One bomb after the other today, Mr. Haack.
Yep. Yeah, and choosing an editor is a very personal decision, and look at the holy wars that have flared up between Emacs and Vim, Sublime versus Atom versus VS Code. And the thing is, like, there's a large, we have a lot of users of Atom who love it. I think, VS Code is amazing. I love VS Code, but there's no reason that we can't have two editors serving two communities. And Nat said pretty much, in his words, he said, as long as there's a community that loves and is enthusiastic about Atom, we'll continue to support it. And we do have that community. I may be biased, but I love using Atom. I use it all the time. I really like it. It's, it has some strengths when VS Code obviously has some strengths over Atom, but Atom has some strengths over VS Code. And I think one of those examples right now is it's extremely extensible, which, we're learning that extensibility comes at a cost, but, we can mitigate that.
It makes me wonder, these are all open source projects anyway. How would you, quote unquote, kill them in the first place?
Yeah,
what does that even mean?
It's just fear.
We can't, we couldn't, right? Yeah, we're not doing that, That's one of the benefits of Atom being open source, is that we really can't kill it.
Yeah, and have no desire to in the first place.
Yeah, and we have no desire to.
Phil, give me a moment here just for this very important message.
Hey, this is Carl. One of our sponsors today, Datadog, is a cloud monitoring platform bringing full visibility to dynamic infrastructure, applications, and now logging. Create beautiful dashboards, set powerful machine learning-based alerts, and collaborate with your team to resolve performance issues. Datadog integrates seamlessly with more than 200 technologies, including Azure, Docker, PagerDuty, and Slack. With fast installation and setup, plus APIs and open source libraries for custom instrumentation, Datadog makes it easy for teams to monitor every layer of their stack in one place. But don't take our word for it. Start a free trial today, and Datadog will send you a free t-shirt. Visit dd.netrocks.com to get started.
And we're back. It's Richard Campbell, Carl Franklin. You're listening to .NET Rocks. We got Phil Haack back. And apparently, he's not going to be a Microsoft employee anytime soon. So Hanselman was wrong when he said, 7.5 is an awful lot to pay for Phil Haack.
Well, he was wrong because it's not an awful lot to pay. Come on, guys.
That's Phil Haack we're talking about here.
Jeez, come on.
He wants me back, too. He misses me so much.
Yeah.
Well, and part of this is you do live in the Seattle/Redmond area and commute down to GitHub headquarters in San Francisco, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I live 2 miles from the Redmond campus of Microsoft, so I often, go over there to meet with folks because we have existing partnerships, that we've been working on for the past few years. So,
sure.
Earlier you said I won't become a Microsoft employee. I don't know exactly the details of all that. I just know that, I'll remain an employee of a wholly owned subsidiary. I don't know what that means per se. But the good news I think for me is that these are all folks I have a long history of working with.
Sure.
I've continued to work with them even as, I became a GitHub employee. And I, really look forward to being a part of the whole Microsoft family again. We'll call it that way, right? Part of the whole thing, and having even more direct inside access to folks. I was telling my team, like, we can't comment on like what things will be like in the future. Like, we're in this, as I mentioned before, we're in this regulatory period. We're still independent. We need to not make any plans. Keep doing business as usual, so to speak. Not make any plans with direction from Microsoft or, yada yada, right? But it's really hard for me not to look ahead and say, what things will become available? What opportunities will be available when the acquisition does close?
Sure.
I told my team, like, several of my teams use TypeScript. We're big fans of TypeScript. I was like, oh yeah, there's this guy Anders Hausberg there who created that.
He knows a few things.
Yeah, one of my teams does C#. Hey, Anders again.
Yeah, and Mads.
Yeah, we have teams who are using Haskell for some tasks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simon Peyton Jones works at Microsoft, right? So there's a lot of amazing people over there and amazing projects. I did a recent thing with Microsoft Cognitive Services and Azure Functions. I wrote a blog post about it. What I did was I was curious about, it's really ironic. So when I was at Microsoft, I worked on ASP.MVC. I was like, just completely immersed in the web. And then I joined GitHub, and I'm doing WPF initially, and I'm doing all client. Like, my org is client apps, right? Like, I'm just completely into client now. And I was like, man, I'm really being passed by all this new tech, right? We got serverless functions, we got Kubernetes, we got containers, and I'm just like, I'm reading about it. I understand roughly what the problems they solve, but I'm not in there doing it. So that's, I think, where you get the deeper level of understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I was like, okay, I got to do something. So I was like, I'm going to write an Azure function to do something interesting. Oh, look, Azure Functions has specific support for GitHub webhooks.
Right.
And it's really good, right? Like, you just create a function, it gives you the code to put in the GitHub side for your repo, and now whatever events you subscribe to on the GitHub side are calling your function. And so I thought, okay, what am I going to do in this function? It would be kind of fun just to play around with this sentiment analysis and issue comments.
Yep.
And because people get really salty,
they get pretty wound up. Oh yeah,
they get wound up, but they also get really happy, right? So, so what I did was I called I hooked it up to Microsoft Cognitive Services. As a Microsoft MVP, I get a little bit of credit for the Azure. So I called into their Cognitive Services to do sentiment analysis on comments, and as a proof of concept, I would edit the comment with the sentiment analysis score. And the reason I say proof of concept is it's really cool what you can and can't do with ML and AI, but the stuff you can do doesn't mean you should do it, right? Like, I don't know, I could imagine, like, if a bot responds to your tone in an issue, that might not exactly help the situation.
Right. But yeah, I generally found that saying wow back to a critical comment in a post like that, not constructive.
Yeah, like what does this robot know about human emotion, right? But I could imagine, like, it being a thing where, like, hey, if a sentiment score scored this negative, alert the maintainer that you may want to jump in here, right? Like, that might be more productive use of it. So as a proof of concept, it would go in and edit it and say, hey, thanks for your positive comment, or hey there, let's not be so rude. But, it was really clear that this is just me playing around, and it had the sentiment score there.
Yeah, I think the better thing is that notifiers, like, any extreme emotion is worth being notified on. Yeah. But I'm digressing again. But, like, the whole point of this whole story is I had so much fun hooking these things up together, and it was so easy. And, like, that set of, like, cognitive services, like, having that available to our products in a holistic, intentional way could be really interesting.
Have you experienced the Don Rickles bot? Just constantly insults you in a contextual, smart way.
Well, that's like every conversation I have with Hanselman,
Contextual and smart, but still insulting. All right.
Yeah, like, it's really how funny his insults are to me,
Right. And very politically correct too. The most politically correct, polite insult you've ever had.
Oh man, that's so funny.
Afterwards, you wonder, did I just get insulted? I don't know.
Yeah, not sure. I feel really good about myself anyway.
Like, how did he insult me yet, like, still honor my humanity?
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah, buddy.
Guess what time it is now?
It must be that happy time again.
Yeah. Time to get up out of the sack, jump in the back, roll down the window a crack, give my face a smack and my back a whack. I'm having a full-blown hack attack.
Awesome. You're rapping today.
Not really.
Something.
It's not even close. It's actually time to give...
You just had to lay down a funky beat behind that,
little
man.
Funky
you
beat, maybe.
Yeah.
It's actually like time to give away a Telerik... What'd you say?
You're like Big Shaq.
I knew I missed one.
He had a bit of a rap career as well.
It's actually time to give away a Telerik DevCraft toolkit to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But first, let me tell you about Conversational UI from Progress, Telerik, and Kendo UI. Conversational UI are chatbot framework agnostic user interface controls and components that enable .NET and JavaScript developers to create modern conversational chatbot experiences in their web, mobile, and desktop applications. The industry's first packaged set of user interface components built specifically for chatbots are available as part of the company's Telerik ASP.NET Ajax, ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Core, WinForms, WPF, Xamarin products, and Kendo UI for jQuery, Angular, Vue, React, PHP, and JSP libraries. In other words, everything. By implementing key UI design features such as calendars, date pickers, list views, and others that are included in the tool sets, developers will be able to improve chatbot conversation through visual elements that enhance the natural flow of conversation. For more information on this very cool product, check out telerik.com/conversational-UI.
All right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner is Per B. Anderson.
Congratulations, Per.
Congratulations, Per. Per just won the Telerik DevCraft Toolkit. That's a big pile of awesome from our friends over there, just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you'd like to join, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world, and every show we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the fan club. But you got to sign up to win. We also like to ask our guests, Phil, of course, you know what's coming. If you had $5,000 to spend on technology, what are you going to buy?
Oh, man, that's a great question once again. And I knew you were going to ask me this, and I'm still struggling to come up with the answer. I'll tell you something I just bought that I like. You mentioned curved monitors. I got the AOS 40-inch C4008 View 8 or something like that, and I love it. I think, maybe I'd go for an even larger curved monitor.
More of them. Yeah. You know what? Actually, I like the idea of the 10 monitors surrounding me. Right.
So, I don't know if 5,000 is enough, but maybe I'd build a semicircle of monitors.
Yeah, the video cards will break you, but other than that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great because, I get that, peripheral vision while developing my tan at the same time.
Nice. But you're going to always think there's something coming out of the corner of your eye, but now it's actually going to be true. There's always something going on at the corner of your eye.
I just think, oh, God, playing Fortnite with that setup. Oh, man.
Well, the first thing you learn is no mouse pad is big enough.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's time to go to the rollerball.
I mean, really, what we really want to talk about here is Fortnite, isn't it?
All right. I just invented something really cool. So now you have this circle of monitors. Now what if they were on a conveyor belt? So when you move the mouse to the right, everything shifts to the left. So you never have to move. The monitors move. Now that's cool. Just thinking of ways to blow money.
I need that in my life.
I took a quick peek through that AMA that Nat did. Man, talk about the right guy in the right spot. He's Well, he's been a friend of GitHub long before he was part of Microsoft, but back in the even before the Xamarin days, for that matter, and certainly knows the product backward and forward. Has been a part of its history. Like, definitely square peg and square hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. I remember he was at our when we shipped GitHub for Windows 1.0. We had a party at the Ferry Building in San Francisco, and he and Miguel were there to celebrate with us. So he's been around a long time. Like a big booster for GitHub.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I guess the silly part about anybody talking with any of the fear around that here is, Microsoft has bet huge on GitHub. We've done the show with Brian Harry. We were talking about them contributing the virtual file system services into Git because of Windows, because they needed to store a 300 gigabyte source repository for Windows.
Yeah.
That is an interesting problem to just imagine. So I imagine you had 300 gigabytes of source code.
Yeah.
The one, I think they called it the one engineering effort within Microsoft. I mean, there's a lot about not just moving to Git, but getting consistent across how they engineer things. And I remember reading some article a while back where it used to take more than 24 hours to do a daily quote unquote build of Windows.
Yeah.
And
how's that
I don't know what they have it down to now, but it's got to be better than that.
Right.
Yeah, you would hope. I remember we've done 15 shows with you, Mr. Haack. This will be the number 16. And I remember before you went to GitHub, when you were on the Ship It team for Studio, and you told the story of trying to get to a point when everything is assembled and able to ship. And just that the amount of testing and the cycle time involved in that, and the number of factors that you had to manage together to make it happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, the ship room. Yeah.
The ship room.
When I was, right. That was fun times. I've forgotten all about that.
Okay.
Thanks, Richard.
I hear some PTSD in your voice there, my friend.
So, Phil, you obviously have a history with Visual Studio, and that's you're in your wheelhouse. What's the latest interactions or work between GitHub and Visual Studio?
We had shipped the GitHub for Visual Studio extension a while back, and we've continued to improve it. The latest stuff that I've been really excited about is we brought pull requests into Visual Studio in a deeper way. So, for example, when you go to the Team Explorer little tab or whatever, and you click pull request, you can see a list of pull requests. You can check out a pull request, and that'll check out the branch associated with the pull request. And then you can even see review comments that are on GitHub in there, and then you can add new review comments. So if you click on a diff, like a change file within a pull request, you'll see the diff show up. You can actually in the diff editor, you can actually click the gutter and add a new comment, and then publish it, and that'll be added to the GitHub pull request. And so, for those of you who live in your editor, more and more, you never have to leave. I do recommend going out, getting some sunshine, cleaning up the bottle of the cans of Coke on the floor. But more and more, the things you want to do are available at your fingertips within the editor.
Nice.
That's cool.
Well, and just that's what you mean by deep integration then. It's not just that I could get my source repository and get to work, but that I could actually interact on that social aspect of how GitHub operates, which I think is super powerful.
Yeah, the guiding principle here is we really want to focus on the things that are sort of value add and enhanced by being in the editor. We don't want to bring all of GitHub.com into your editor, because that wouldn't make any sense. But there are certain things that make a lot of sense to be in your editor. For example, if someone comments on a pull request on a line of code that you're working on, wouldn't it be nice to know that someone commented on that, or down the road that someone changed that in their local branch, and you may be, due for a conflict? We don't have any of that just yet, but that's the kind of thinking we're doing about what can GitHub bring to the experience on your local machine. Doing code reviews is a really good example. So in the past, I've done a lot of code reviews fully on GitHub.com. I look at the code, a lot of times, we do this annoying thing where we just comment on the style, let a linter do that, let a, FX cop do that, right? But, we'll also try to find this looks like that would be a bug, or this is incorrect. But it's no substitute for pulling that code into your machine and running it and stepping through it and trying it out as well, right?
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of things in the past to improve that experience. If you've installed and authenticated with the GitHub extension for Visual Studio, or if you've used our GitHub desktop product, on github.com, when you're looking at a PR at the bottom there, it's a little bit, I think we can make this a little more prominent, but there's that view this PR on desktop, right? You click that, one click, it launches desktop using URL protocol handler. And then it checks out that branch. And then from desktop, you could open it in Visual Studio or Atom or wherever. Then now you got it locally. And in Visual Studio, you step through the debugger and all that. And now you can start adding comments to that PR directly from Visual Studio. So that, that bridging between the web and your desktop and creating that, that seamless experience is what we're after.
Very good. So what I'm hearing is things aren't really going to change all that much for GitHub users.
No, I mean, hopefully, the changes that will happen are all for the better.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the tweets of some people that are just sort of freaking out over this stuff, it's just fear. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm really happy that Microsoft is putting its dollars behind GitHub. That just ensures that it's going to be around for a long time.
I agree. I think, I can understand some of the fear, some of the concern. I think, like you said, if you take a hard look at it, you take a look at recent history, you take a look at, a lot of these things, you realize, I think Paul Ford wrote a really good article that this is a good thing. And he kind of dispels some of the so-called myths, like some of the bad things that Microsoft has done in the past have actually sort of grown in scale versus what actually happened, right? Like there's that effect that perception doesn't reflect reality. But, regardless, I think people are making rational decisions based on their perceptions. I think if you dig into it, you start to realize maybe your perception is a little bit off, or maybe things, have changed and you still have an outdated perception. I think that, proof will be in the pudding, right? Like the proof will be as we move forward and as GitHub remains independent and as, GitHub improves, especially under Nat's leadership, future leadership, like people will come around and see that, these worries were unfounded.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that time. I mean, look at it this way. Another way to look at it is so many teams at Microsoft use GitHub every single day for their work.
Right.
I mean, Microsoft employees themselves would be pissed off if we ruined GitHub.
Yeah, of course.
In the Reddit AMA, somebody asked Nat point blank, why was Microsoft so anti-open source for so long? And Nat's response was fear.
Interesting. Yeah. And now, you have all these people who are afraid of what Microsoft is going to do.
Yeah. No, I think he answered it really well.
Yeah.
Something you said earlier before the break, Phil, we were talking about how projects change and so forth, and this idea that there are a lot of people, including at Microsoft today, that are paid to work on projects that live in GitHub. Do you see this kind of cultural shift going on in open source, where open source is simply part of business, it's no longer just a volunteer contribution? What's that going to do to culture?
Yeah, I see that. Like the other point I'd make, so I really like that answer that Nat had. And one of the questions then is what changed? Like, why did Microsoft stop fearing?
Right.
And if you look at the recent history, it's because they changed their business model, right? Like here's the other sort of, like quote unquote proof of why this is a good thing, is that under the old regime where Microsoft put all their eggs in the Windows Office basket, right? Open source was a threat, right? Mm-hmm. But now that their business more and more, or and their future success is dependent primarily, I would say, on Azure. I mean, like big key components of Windows are now under Guthrie, right? He owns the whole cloud, server and AI, and like the Windows.
I'm pretty sure he owns everything these days, buddy. Like he owns all the things.
I think he has like 60 something thousand in his org, like I was like, man, when I joined Microsoft way back when, he was just, quote, lowly GM, but now he's, got just about everything.
Yeah.
But when your business model is like, hey, we don't care what you run. We just want to try to earn the right to host your code on Azure.
Right.
Like, that changes there's no incentive to go in and be evil with open source or kill open source, right?
No.
You got to look at their business model ultimately. Like, that's how you know how people are incentivized to behave, right? Like, their business is not advertising. It's not selling licenses to Windows. It's selling, compute on Azure. It's selling these services. It's selling hosting. It's selling all that.
Right.
And as far as they're concerned, like, at the end of the day, the dollars they make doesn't care like whether like it was made running Linux, Windows, whatever it may be. Like, as long as you're using Azure, as far as they're concerned, right?
Yeah. No, and the beautiful thing about Azure and the whole sales model of Azure is it's based on consumption. So it's not you're not just selling a box. You're not locking someone in after a golf game. It's day to day, month to month, year to year. Are we providing you service that you value enough to actually use it?
Right. And I had this thought the other day too, is how they have these the thing that goes through your services and all of the resources and figures out how you can tighten up your monthly bill, right? And I thought to myself, well, why would they want to do that? Because it's not efficient for anybody for you to be utilizing a VM and have it running when it's doing nothing, because not only is it not good for you and your bottom line, but that's a resource that can be used and utilized by somebody else. So it's in Microsoft's best interest to get that efficiency right. And part of that is really good for customers because it's going to cost them less. Why pay for something you're not using? That's not going to make you a happy customer.
Yeah, and I think that's also emblematic of like penny wise, pound foolish, right? Like, they don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish, right? Like, sure, they could, increase short-term results by charging you every single bit they could, but by giving you that tool to, optimize your expenditures, like, you're a happier customer. You're more likely to stick around longer versus, once you realize, oh shoot, I still have that gym membership I never used,
right?
But I'm still paying for. Like, I'm going to cancel that shit right away. Excuse me. I'm going to cancel that right away.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the kind of thinking I wish we could see more of in the industry. I think it's, when you're a small startup, sometimes it's hard, right? You're trying to make that next paycheck, to your people. And it can be tough when you have a larger business and you have the means. Like, long-term thinking has to become part of your DNA. And, a company that does this really well is Amazon. I read this interview with Jeff Bezos, and he's like, by the time you've seen our quarterly results, we appreciate the congratulations, but that was all planning done 3 years ago. We're already planning for what our results are going to be 3 years ahead, right?
Right.
And that is a level of maturity and professionalism for an organization that I'd like to get to. Like, I'd like to see us, planning 3 years ahead as well as 1 year ahead, and such. And I think that organizations like Microsoft are probably very far along in that road. I don't know. I know that they do 3-year planning as well. So I think that's exciting because when you plan that far ahead, you can take a more what's in our long-term best interest approach versus like, let's milk something and kill it, and then
move on to the next thing. What's the next body? Right. I also, feel that way about software too. Too much sprint to sprint and not enough that longer horizon of how does, there's where reliability and quality comes into play. As soon as you start thinking about living with a piece of software for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Sustainability, it's an important concept there.
And this idea that open source has just become part of business now, I don't know that everyone's got their head around it viscerally, that they sort of get this is business.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's both, right? Like, it's become important. A lot of open source starts as a hobby. It's scratch an itch. I needed this. But then, you got to make a paycheck, right? And so you start using that at work, and then it becomes invaluable to the companies, and companies are now investing in it. Because here's the thing, like, companies are coming around to the idea that we don't need to compete on every single line of code. What we want to compete is on what differentiates us, and the things that we have in common. We should collaborate on, right? Like Git, is part of our core infrastructure. We're gonna collaborate on that. Kubernetes, all these things. Like there's no need, whoever has the best cloud container thing is not going to help your business as a soda distributor or whatever, right? Like you want to focus on your business domain and collaborate with the world on all the underlying infrastructure and tools that are pretty common and pretty undifferentiated.
Well, Phil, what's next for you? Living the big life, living the dream, limos, margaritas, hot tubs. I know.
Monitors. Not a lot changes. I'm more focused on like what opportunities are going to be opened for for myself and my teams as part of this. I've always been excited about making the lives of developers better, making people more productive, more happy when they're using the tools. I'm a big fan of like software's ability to pull people who don't have access to resources out of poverty. If we could get software into the hands of more people, or the ability to create software into the hands of people in underserved communities, in poor countries, what have you, poor communities. Like, that really excites me. I think, we want to continue building tools that are accessible and inclusive. And that gets really motivated. That's kind of what's next for me, is to keep, during the regulatory period, keep my head down, business as usual. But once the world opens up there, to really continue thinking about what can we bring to the world that hasn't seen before.
Well, that's great. Phil, make sure you keep us informed and come on back soon.
Oh, I'd be happy to. I got to make that 17 club.
It's coming. I know know it is. You're in a rarefied world. I got to change up the titles on your shows because there's only so many GitHub update, GitHub greatness, GitHub goodness. Phil's getting again.
Haack fights back. That's what the next one's going to be.
Get hacked.
Get hacked.
That's it.
All right, Phil, thanks a lot. It's been great as always.
As always, my pleasure, gentlemen.
All right, and we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Pwop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time. Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a